guys, my name is Courtney and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be discussing all the books that I've read in the month of August. August is my transitional month back into school, and I'm talking about the transitional period and the moving back to college because this video will be in a different place after the first couple books that I talk about. But anyway, let's just get into the books. First, I'm going to start with manga just because super quick. If you're familiar with my channel, a lot of these series I've talked about before because I read them all the time, read them every other month, and I don't need to discuss every single detail of the mangas. The first manga I have is Yona of the Dawn volume 24 and 25. I read both of these this month. This is one of my favorite mangas of all time. It's shoujo, so it's kind of like the YA genre of the manga world. I love this series. It's just so well done. I love all the characters. It's in a fantasy world where there's magic and prophecies and just like great characters and character development. The war stuff is great. The plot stuff is great. It's a fantastic series. Highly recommend. And then I also read the 12th volume of Our Ride. This is the second to last volume, so this like kind of wrapped everything up, and then the next volume is kind of going to conclude everything and just have some extra stuff. And I've read the series before, collected this series for a long time. It's one of my favorite series, and I'm so glad that it got translated to English because I never thought it would. And it's the perfect high school romance friendship story. And like I have said before, what makes this so great is that, don't get me wrong, I love shoujo manga. I love how cheesy and over the top it is. This has those cheesy over the top moments, but especially the characters are they feel very like teenagers. They act like teenagers, they make mistakes, they have flaws that they're trying to work through, and I love how real and fresh this story is, and I love their imperfectness. It's so good. And then the last manga series I have on here is the 3 final bind-up volumes of the Full Metal Alchemist series. This is volume 7, so this is volumes 19, 20, and 21. This bind-up is number 8, which is 22, 23, 24, and then the final bind-up volume 9, is volumes 25, 26, and 27. So now I have finally finished the Full Metal Alchemist manga. I love the anime. It's one of the first animes I got into when I was really young. I love this series. It's so well constructed. I love all the characters. In shonen, the reason why I don't read a lot of shonen or watch a lot of shonen animes is because I get tired of the plots and I don't really connect with the characters, especially when there's not a lot of female characters. But Full Metal Alchemist has great characters, great dynamics, great female characters as well. And it's a really powerful series. It's really great. It's a well-known show. I will not be the first and last person to probably recommend this. I finished it and I had a really great time reading it. I'm really glad I decided to pick up the manga for the first time instead of just rewatching the show. And now let's get into the novels I read. The first novel I have on here is Axiom's End by Lindsay Ellis. I'm a fan of Lindsay Ellis's YouTube channel, of her musical podcast, just her as a person. So I was really excited to finally read her first published novel that came out earlier this month or late last month, whenever it came out. I was really excited for it. This is an adult sci-fi, so it's not something that I typically go towards, especially because this is alien sci-fi, which normally I don't really have interest in alien invasion stories. I really liked the aliens, and here it wasn't just like evil alien invasions. There was like a culture and a history to the aliens, and the main alien that we meet is also just really unique and interesting as a character. Basically, if you are familiar with Lindsay Ellis's taste, I don't think this book is going to surprise you in what like happens in it. But to not spoil the book too much, this is a novel about a young woman who has recently dropped out of college. It is 2007 and her father is very famous for being this like whistleblower of alien activity that the government has been trying to hide up. She doesn't want any part of that, but of course alien type things start to happen around her, and it looks like it might be the start of an alien invasion, and so it's her kind of getting involved with some of that activity. And yeah, I found this just really well done. I thought this book was really accessible without like dumbing down like any of the technology, without dumbing down the alien stuff. The themes in here were really interesting, and I'm really excited to see the sequel novel to this and kind of see where the fallout happens. There's a lot of stuff that happens, especially towards the end of this book, that I don't want to spoil, but like I'm very interested in seeing like what is discussed with some of the things that happen. So yes, I'm very interested in the sequel, and I really enjoyed this, but I wouldn't say I loved it, but it was very good, and it made me more interested in sci-fi. And then the next book I have on here is, oddly enough, another alien sci-fi book. Weirdly, I read not one alien book this year, I read 2 in the same month. To me, that's crazy because it's just not a genre I normally reach towards. So this is A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor, the sequel to An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green, which came out last year, and then this one came out last month as well. This is again an alien sci-fi book, but it's a sequel, so I don't want to spoil it too much. But in the first book, it follows April May, who is a recent college graduate student, and she comes across this statue and makes a video of it, and it goes viral because these statues start popping up everywhere around the world, and they may or may not be alien activity. But yeah, I found this story very beautiful. I loved the first book, it's one of my favorite books, but this like expanded the world, the mythos of the first book. With sequels, it's hard to make stakes bigger. Like if you have like the world is ending in the first book, it's very hard to like make those stakes bigger in the second book if the issue is resolved in the first one. Not just like the plot and the consequences, just like the world. Like the world building was somehow expanded in this book, which I think is really well done. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was really interesting. I will say though is that I don't know if April, I don't want to spoil the second book, but like I don't know if April got enough like consequences or backlash from her friend group in this second book. I wish she kind of had to apologize a little bit more for her actions of the first book, but overall like I really did love this book. But I think I do need to reread it because like this book is kind of chunky, a lot happens, it's a lot bigger than the first book. And so I think I need another read of this to digest it, especially because reading this book and then reading this book was kind of not a bad idea, but like they have similar themes. They're not at all similar in like plot or anything, but they touch upon similar ideas. And so like to read similar alien books, I'm like, wait, did this happen in this book or this book? So maybe I should have spaced them out a little bit more. But overall, like I loved both of these books. They were both great. So I guess I need to read more sci-fi. But anyway, let's cut to the next clip where I will talk about what I read in the later half of this month. Hi, new location, as I said, back into my apartment. So let's get into the books I read in the last half of the month. So one book I finished before I left was Upright Woman Wanted. Can't remember if I talked about this book on the other half, but it is a short novella novelette, and it's about a group of lesbian librarians in like a post-apocalyptic dystopian American future where it's like Wild Wild West themed. I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars. I thought it was interesting and I liked the characters and like where the plot went, but I thought it would be more literary. I kind of went into expectations with it to be a little bit more refined in like the writing and like the themes and stuff. And so like I thought it was an interesting, fun story, but it just wasn't what I thought it was gonna be. So I was a little bit disappointed, but you know, it was fun. It was a good read. The next book I have, which ended up being my plain book, was Beach Read by Emily Henry. This is a adult contemporary romance novel, which is not something I pick up a lot, but I was interested in this one because it's by Emily Henry and I've read her books before and I like her writing. And this book follows a author that's in her mid-20s. She's written like a bunch of adult contemporary romance novels and she's feeling a little bit lost. Her father just passed away and it's revealed that her father had like a mistress and like this whole second life, and so she's dealing with that. And then her love interest, of course, is Gus, who was like her rival at college. He's like this big literary writer, and like the whole big drawing point of them coming together is that they decide to write in each other's genres. So she's going to try and write a literary work and he is going to try and write a romance. It was different, it was fun. I liked the characters a lot. I liked that they had these emotional things that they had to go through. It wasn't just like a straight fluffy romance. I really did like that, but I don't know if it was because I was on the plane. I don't know if it was just my mood, but I just felt myself dissociating from reading this. So like I liked the characters, but I didn't like fall in love with them. I liked the romance, but like I just didn't care about it, if that makes sense. Like, you know, like a big whole steamy sex scene was happening and I just like didn't care. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. But like I was engaged in the story. I enjoyed it. I just didn't feel like those fluttery butterfly feelings, which is like totally like a personal thing. So I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars for like my personal mood while reading this, but I do think that this was a really well written novel. It was a lot of fun, really interesting, and I liked all the characters. I need to try some other contemporary romance, but like maybe that just isn't the genre for me, or just not right now. And then the last book I read, or the one I'm currently reading, is Ray Bear by Jordan Ifuko. This is like an Afrofuturism fantasy novel following a young girl from like the time she's like 11 to like 18, 17-ish. And in this story, the king is a ray bearer, which basically blesses them with these like different powers and stuff. At a young age, they form a council of people from different nations in their kingdom that have like gifts and talents and magical abilities, and they form like this like united bond of like council people. And so like that's the kind of fantastical setting for this book. So obviously our main character ends up being like one of the council members, or someone that's like trying to vie for a council member spot. But the whole thing is that her mom has some history with the previous ray bearer who is currently king, and she wants her daughter to kill the prince and possibly the king. And so it's like this whole idea of like, you know, bonding and falling in love with these council members and like with this prince, but also like she has to kill him. It's great. It really subverts like a lot of expectations of what you think is going to happen in this story. The characters are great. There are queer characters, and it's really, really great so far. Like I said, I'm currently reading this and I still have like the last chunk to go, but like so far, like I'm in love with the story. It's very character driven, very slow buildy, and I really, really love that about it. This was on my TBR list and I didn't end up finishing it, but I'm loving slowly reading this book because it is so good. So yeah, we'll talk about this in the next month. Those are all the books that I read in the month of August. Tell me what you read this month, what you loved. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later, and happy reading.